Folks, let's talk about Noam Chomsky, the rock star of linguistics and public intellectual extraordinaire. This guy's been shaking things up for decades, challenging the powers that be and speaking truth to power. From his groundbreaking work in linguistics to his searing critiques of US foreign policy, Chomsky's become a global icon, a champion of the underdog, and a voice for the voiceless. Chomsky's not afraid to ruffle feathers. He's been called a radical, a dissident, even a traitor. But you know what I call him? A patriot. Because true patriotism isn't about blindly following the flag, it's about holding your country to a higher standard. And that's exactly what Chomsky does. In the Globalization of Human Rights, Chomsky doesn't pull any punches. He lays out his argument clear as day. Globalization, in its current form, ain't exactly a friend to human rights. In fact, he argues that it often undermines them. Chomsky points out the glaring double standards of powerful nations. They talk big about human rights when it's convenient, but conveniently ignore them when it's not. It's like they think the rules only apply to other countries, not to the good guys. He argues that neoliberal policies, often touted as the be-all and end-all of economic progress, have actually led to greater inequality and suffering around the world. Free markets for you, but not for the poor and marginalized. And let's not forget the media's role in all of this. Chomsky argues that the media often act as a mouthpiece for the powerful, manufacturing consent for policies that harm the very people they claim to protect. Talk about fake news. Chomsky's a master at exposing hypocrisy, and believe me, there's no shortage of it when it comes to human rights. He argues that powerful nations like the US often use human rights as a tool to further their own interests. Need an excuse to invade a country? Human rights violations. Want to impose sanctions on a regime you don't like? Human rights abuses. It's all about maintaining power and control, folks. Chomsky points out that the US has a long and sordid history of supporting brutal dictators and oppressive regimes when it suits their interests. Remember the Shah of Iran, Pinochet in Chile? Yeah, not exactly champions of human rights. So the next time you hear a politician talking about human rights, remember Chomsky's words, "Actions speak louder than words." Neoliberalism, it's the economic gospel according to the free market fundamentalists. Privatize everything, cut taxes for the wealthy, and deregulate the economy. Sounds great, right? Well, not so fast. Chomsky argues that neoliberal policies have had a devastating impact on human rights around the world. They've led to increased inequality, poverty, and environmental destruction. It's the same old story. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer. He points out that these policies often benefit multinational corporations at the expense of workers, communities, and the environment. It's all about maximizing profit, folks, even if it means exploiting people and the planet. Section 5. The media's role manufacturing consent, one headline at a time. Now let's talk about the media, the so-called fourth estate. Chomsky argues that the media often act as a propaganda machine, manufacturing consent for the policies of the powerful. They do this by controlling the narrative, framing the debate, and marginalizing dissenting voices. Think about it. How often do you see critical perspectives on US foreign policy in the mainstream media? Not very often, right? That's because the media are owned by a handful of giant corporations, and they have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Chomsky argues that the media play a key role in justifying wars, interventions, and other policies that violate human rights. They do this by demonizing enemies, exaggerating threats, and downplaying the human cost of these actions. Section 6. Case Study 1. The Iraq War. A humanitarian intervention? Remember the Iraq War? Of course you do. It was the war that was supposed to bring democracy to the Middle East. The war that was based on lies about weapons of mass destruction. The war that cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent people. Chomsky argues that the Iraq War was a textbook example of how powerful nations use human rights as a pretext for war. The Bush administration justified the invasion by claiming that Saddam Hussein was a brutal dictator who was developing weapons of mass destruction. Of course, these claims turned out to be completely false. The Iraq War was a humanitarian catastrophe, and it's a stark reminder of the human cost of US foreign policy. It's also a reminder of the media's complicity in promoting these wars. Section 7. Case Study 2. The Global South. Still paying the price. While we're on the topic of US foreign policy, let's not forget about the Global South. Chomsky argues that the Global South has been on the receiving end of US imperialism for decades. From Latin America to Southeast Asia, the US has a long history of intervening in the affairs of other countries, often with disastrous consequences. Chomsky points out that neoliberal policies have had a particularly devastating impact on the Global South. These policies have led to increased poverty, inequality, and environmental degradation. They've also made it easier for multinational corporations to exploit workers and resources in developing countries. Section 8. Chomsky's Enduring Relevance, a Beacon in Troubled Times. In today's world where human rights are under attack from all sides, Chomsky's work is more relevant than ever. His searing critiques of power, his unwavering commitment to justice, and his ability to cut through the propaganda are essential for anyone who wants to understand the world we live in. Chomsky's work is a call to action. He reminds us that we all have a responsibility to speak out against injustice and to fight for a more just and equitable world. He shows us that another world is possible, but only if we're willing to fight for it. Section 9. Conclusion. What now? The fight continues. So there you have it, folks. Chomsky's The Globalization of Human Rights is a powerful indictment of the hypocrisy of powerful nations and the devastating impact of neoliberal policies. It's a call to action for all of us to stand up for human rights and to fight for a more just and equitable world. Chomsky's work can be challenging, even uncomfortable at times. But that's because he's asking us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world we live in. He's asking us to question everything we thought we knew and to imagine a better future. The fight for human rights is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be setbacks, disappointments, and moments of despair. But we can't give up, we can't afford to. The future of humanity depends on it.